Guess we'll go ahead and get started like Dr. McKinley said. Welcome, everybody. Please utilize the chat to enter any questions you may have, but we will have time for an open Q&A after Dr. McKinley's talk. Please remain muted throughout unless you would like to ask a question when the time comes. This talk is being recorded for those who cannot be with us this evening. Today's topic is advancing your role as a leader in dietetics with purpose and self-assurance. And of course, with the one and only Dr. Erin McKinley, PhD, RD, LDN, CLC, CAGS. Dr. McKinley is the current director of dietetics and an assistant professor at Louisiana State University. She's been an RD since 2013 and is also a certified lactation counselor and certified health education specialist. She received her Master of Science in Food and Nutrition and her PhD in Health Education and Health Promotion from the University of Alabama. She's a career-changing RD with a previous career in casino gaming and hospitality. She's the current secretary of Louisiana Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, current president of Brand, current treasurer for the Public Health Community Nutrition DPG, mentoring chair of the Research DPG and the APHA Food and Nutrition section, among several other roles on campus and in the community. She was awarded the 2020 Emerging Leader in Dietetics and the 2021 Louisiana Outstanding Dietitian of the Year honors. Please welcome Dr. Erin McKinley.
Yay, thank you, Brooke, so much for the introduction, and thank you everybody for taking some time out this evening to join us for this talk and our October meeting. And so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So when we were talking about putting together some meetings for this year and the topics that had come up, our previous president had, I think, jokingly mentioned that maybe I should give a talk on leadership since it seems to come so easily to me, and I'm the one kind of coaching and mentoring a lot of others on how to take on leadership roles, maintain those roles, improve within those roles. And after I was awarded the Outstanding Dietitian of the Year award this year, which I was not expecting to happen at all. For those that know me, I've only been in Louisiana for a little over 3 years. And so my footprint here, I didn't feel was that big or that deep. And seeing as though that I was on the board, I was able to sneak a peek at the actual nomination forms. And when they had it all nicely displayed on an Excel doc, and I noticed right away what separated me from the other nominees was the one question about what is your involvement and your participation in the profession and within the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And my section was like this, and everybody else's section was like this, or not there at all. And so that's pretty much what gave me the idea of, okay, this is really what they're looking at when they're giving these different awards out, is how much are you dedicating your life to the profession that you're in and those that help get you where you are today. And so I wanted to, as brand president in my second term, I took a year off, but to start a tradition within our district of inviting the person who won the Outstanding Dietitian of the Year award to join us and talk about what they think got them there. So I guess I'll be the first. And so leadership was the natural topic that came to light with that. And leadership within dietetics is actually a little bit of a hot topic right now. The new Journal of the Academy just came out, and our president, Kevin Sauer, he wrote a nice little kind of from the president article about his thoughts and feelings about registered dietitians going into really large leadership roles. I'm talking like becoming senators and representatives in state and at the national level, really taking on high roles within politics, big roles within executive and corporate positions, and not just staying in our initial roles that we kind of get pigeonholed in as far as like clinical food service, academia, research, those sorts of things, and how when you look at those who are in those really big positions and who are influential in politics, they're doctors and lawyers. So why can't dietitians go and be those positions as well. And so I think one of his initiatives as president is to really try to inspire people to shoot higher within our profession and with our profession. And then there's also a fancy talk this year about how to kind of leverage your leadership skills to either move ahead in your current position or move up the ladder with wherever you are. And so I know excelling within the profession, getting paid more, being more successful, that's always on everyone's mind within every profession. But there's finally some more spotlight being put on that within what's been going on. So for those who don't know me, most of you do, you have class with me tomorrow, but some of you know me for a little while, but you may not have heard my journey to RD, or you have in a shortened or lengthy version of it. But I am a career-changing dietitian, and that's a term that we do use in our business to describe anybody who came to dietetics as not their first choice. And so for some of us, it was our second choice or our second career. Sometimes it's third or fourth career, depending on when we decide to kind of jump in and do the work to become a dietitian. And so seeing as though this wasn't my first choice, it wasn't my first choice because I didn't want it. It wasn't my first choice because I didn't know it was a thing. And so I didn't know what dietitians were back in the day. And so I went to business school. I first wanted to go into communications. I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be a photojournalist. I wanted to work in the sports industry in making videos and magazines related to extreme sports like BMX and skateboarding. And I have a whole podcast episode I can do about that fun previous part of my life. But that's really what I wanted to go into. And that was actually my first major was journalism. That lasted all of like 3 weeks. The vibe was not there. And so I went over to the business school, and it was a hospitality-based business school, and just kind of felt the vibes were right with that. So I actually have double majored in business administration and marketing, and went out to Vegas thereafter. My parents had moved out there a couple months before I graduated my undergrad, and I started in finance, working in banking, got comfortable with money, then moved over into hospitality management a little bit, and then finally found my way into casino marketing, which was where I really wanted to be. And within maybe 4 months of getting into that last casino that I worked at before I left the industry, I was promoted up to an executive position within 4 months. And so during that time, I got sick. I was diagnosed with cancer and started to seek out alternative healers and realizing they weren't really legit. And then that's what really made me start doing research. And I found out what dietitians were or are, and decided that's what I wanted to do, and figured out how I was going to get that done. I was very confused by the process myself. That's why I always say I agree with my students that it is a confusing process, because I had no idea what I was doing when I was getting into it. And so in 2010, I picked up my life and moved from Las Vegas to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and was working on my master's in food and nutrition and going back and taking all my DPD classes at the same time. So at first, I wasn't really sure what was going on in those master's classes, but I'm really good at picking up on things quickly and faking it till I make it, that sort of mentality. And qualified for their coordinated program and was able to also complete my internship there. So I finished everything up in 3.5 years. And while I was doing the research for my master's degree, I was asked to stay to get my PhD, which allowed me to teach at the undergraduate level. I passed the RD exam in November of 2013. And since I had my master's already, I was allowed to teach at the undergrad level. So I was fortunate that I was able to get almost 5 years of teaching experience before I even landed my job at LSU. So, most of that was online as well, which definitely came in handy during the COVID times. But throughout each of these parts of my life, I didn't even mention pre going to college, but I was born and raised in Rhode Island, and my parents are very stereotypical Northerners with an accent. They don't pronounce their R's, and they were folks that started in a very low-level position, entry-level position. They both worked their way up through the industries that they were in to high management and executive positions. And they were also able to manage volunteer roles and I call part-time politician roles at the same time. So we grew up in, well, Rhode Island's a small state, so every town's a small town there. But within our town, it really was a run by all of the locals. And so some were elected, some volunteered. And my parents, my mother was elected to a position, my father volunteered, and they were able to manage this. And I was able to observe that from a very young age, that they didn't just go to work all day. There was other things that they were, and other people that they were responsible for other than my sister and myself. And then throughout the different jobs that I had throughout all of this time, even in Vegas, even when I was in Alabama, I was involved with local nonprofits as much as I could. Was trying to volunteer. And when you go back to school when you're older, there's this sort of thing where you automatically feel like you should be doing something more because you have more maturity, experience. And so I was always shooting for, okay, that's what you want everybody else to do, but how can I help you at another level? That's just always what I was shooting for. And then as far as getting involved in the academy, while I was working on my PhD, I was asked by one of my former undergraduate instructors, who was at the time the president of Alabama's Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. She had asked me to be part of the state board, to be part of the breastfeeding, infant feeding expert, so to speak, when it came to that. So leadership, that's the big word. So I like to joke, maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's just like over 30, almost 40 years of people watching and eavesdropping. I've always felt like throughout my life, I was always in the right place at the right time. I was always surrounded by people. At the time, I wasn't big fans of them, or I didn't like working with them, or didn't like being around them, but I learned a lot from them, how to do things, how not to do things. And so I was looking at how about 30% of someone's leadership capabilities is actually genetic, and the other 70% is learned. And the only way that you can really learn and manifest pure leadership within yourself is that you have to be introduced to the environment. It has to be going on around you, or you have to insert yourself into situations in order to be able to observe and listen and be trained in something. Really practice whatever it is that you're doing in that leadership, space, and really start to gain experience. That's the only way true leadership skills start to grow. And so it's hard at my age to go back and really start to be like, well, what was it that really started me in this? I just realized I've always been in that environment. My parents put me in that environment. They were leaders within their workplaces and in the community, and it was always normal to me. And it was something that they encouraged me to take on things when I was younger. Like, don't be scared to ask questions, don't be scared to get involved. And what that really did, and I joke about it now, as I'm like, oh, I'm the elder millennial who, if you can't do it right, I'll just do it myself. Or if someone's going to do it, I might as well. I kind of have that mentality now, unfortunately. Sometimes that comes in handy, sometimes it doesn't. But being able to be around a lot of influential people when I was younger, with my parents being in politics, also really helped me. I was surrounded by a lot of Rhode Island senators, Jack Reed, Patrick Kennedy, Lincoln Chafee, folks that have run for president unsuccessfully. But I was around them at quite a young age, and I liked to observe how they carried themselves, how they talked with and about people, how they interacted with other individuals, how they reacted to situations. I was just mentally just taking notes. And I even I can see flashes in my head now of fundraising events and people watching, and just how these influential people in the smallest state in the country were just interacting with people, and everybody loved them. And it was like, okay, so what are they doing that's making everybody like them so much? Why are they getting everyone to vote for them? Why are they staying in office for 20 plus years? These sorts of things. And so throughout the years, I kind of carried that kind of observational kind of flow with me to really look at how those in management and leadership positions are taking on their responsibilities, how they manage it day to day, how they do their job and then still do this other thing or things that they have taken on. I've always been in awe of people in leadership positions who just always know what to say. That was one of my big things, and that's still one of my big things that I work on in practice is trying to, in moments of stress or moments where the right thing needs to be said, I would like to be that person that says the right thing. And so I've been surrounded by people who had that nice skill as a leader. And I used to joke that I didn't have the ability to small talk. So I surrounded myself with people who would aim like just mindlessly small talk. And that kind of helped me get into that flow of, you really need, as a leader, you need to be able to speak with folks. And instead of being the quiet one in the corner, it's like just small talk, even if it's stuff about you don't even care about. It's just a way to be nice and to get to know people. All right, so I'm just going to go over real quick, since this is a CEU, for our RDs and DTRs that are going to be listening to this and are currently on the call. There is a governance system within the academy. So one of the things I'm going to focus on is leadership within our profession, and that kind of lies within the umbrella of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And there are a ton of opportunities within the academy to get leadership experience, and I'm going to talk about that. So just to kind of overview for those that kind of have heard of how the academy operates, but they're not really sure how it's kind of laid out. And so with the academy, there are a lot of individuals who work for the academy. They have a salary, they are an employee. But when it comes to the governance and the real leadership of the academy, these individuals are elected or selected and are all on a volunteer unpaid basis. That includes the president. You would think for that year that person takes on that pretty much part-time job to be the president, they would be getting paid, but they do not. And so within the board of directors, that includes our elected president, president-elect, speaker of the House, treasurer, all of those kind of very typical positions that you would envision all those top leadership positions being part of. That's the board of directors. And then the House of Delegates has been a hot topic the last couple of months. With the board of directors has come out with this idea that they would like to dissolve the House of Delegates. So pretty much 19 people would like to get rid of 212 people, so that only 19 people have a say and not whatever that adds up to. So that was the big controversy the last couple of months. Is that a good idea? The whole part of, anyone's taken a civics class, checks and balances, that's why board of directors and House of Delegates are really there. They kind of check each other when it comes to certain things. Board of directors is focused more on budget, strategic planning, policies, guidelines for things, and the House of Delegates is more the voice of the membership, the voice of the people. They're kind of like the House of Representatives. They, like the Speaker of the House is an actual title of somebody who gets elected to that. And the House of Delegates is more concerned with bylaws. So policies are like are a little bit more severe than bylaws, which is so the policies would be how the academy operates. Bylaws are how we function within the academy. And they also look at dues structure. So anytime our dues go up, blame the House of Delegates for that. So there's 212 members. And so where all those folks come from? And so each state affiliate has a representative. Every dietetic practice group and member interest group has a representative. And then there are other committees that also have representatives. And those people are all selected within that particular group of people to be that person. And then sometimes within the certain groups, that person is elected. It just depends on the bylaws of that group. And so it is a large group of people, so that's a lot of voices that come to the table, and usually they get split up into subcommittees, but I guess the board of directors would like just to get rid of it altogether, so that would be less voices. So we'll see how that actually turns out, because they haven't said much about it. I think they're still trying to decide. So there's also committees, subcommittees, and different task forces that are in the academy. So you've probably heard of the A&D PAC, the Political Action Committee. There's the Center for Lifelong Learning, the Council for Future Practice, the Council on Ethics, the Student Advisory Board. There's way more than that that are listed on the website. These are usually ones where you can volunteer, kind of nominate yourself to be a part of, and you're selected based off of your qualifications or your expertise or what they're looking for. Sometimes these committees need to have one member that's a student, one that's an educator, someone from the public, someone with a expertise area, someone with a certain degree, certain practice area. So you kind of have to fit what they're looking for, or else you're not selected. I have not been selected for one of these committees, and then I stopped offering because I don't want to be, because I have too much going on. And so dietetic practice groups or DPGs, I talk about these a lot. You might be a member of one or more. You can be a member of as many as you can afford. And so these are based on practice area. And so it has an executive committee or an EC. Each one has one. And some of those individuals are elected. So chair, chair-elect, secretary, treasurer, House of Delegates, and nominating committee. And the rest are non-elected. So they're either volunteered in or selected. And so I began my work within the research DPG. They were looking for folks to nominate themselves for positions. And I nominated myself for the nominating committee position. And I was emailed shortly thereafter, and they were like, hey, a lot of people want to be on the ballot for that position, but we don't have anybody that wants to be secretary. Here's the job description. Are you interested? And the job description made it seem really easy. And so I was like, sure, put me on the ballot. And I actually ran against other people and won in a national election, which I was shocked by. So I was an elected person within that DPG for 2 years. And then I decided to take one of the open, just non-elected positions. And so that's why I run the mentoring program now. But I still participate in monthly EC calls. I just had one today talking about what we're doing for FNCE, already planning for next year's FNCE. And so the EC in that group consists of undergrad students, grad students, postdocs, professionals, folks with masters, PhDs. It's all across the gambit of folks with varying levels of experience. And so member interest groups are very similar to DPGs. They operate very similarly, except they're comprised of individuals based on a common interest area. And so once again, the top chair-elect type positions are elected, and then they kind of choose what kind of committees or these not elected positions that they would like to have. And so there's 7 different member interest groups, potentially 8. They're trying to create a disability group, which I'm really excited about. And then state affiliates, that's our local state one. So LAND, our Louisiana Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, that's our state affiliate for our state. And so each state has one, including DC, Puerto Rico, and then there's an international affiliate for individuals who are RDs in practice outside the US, which is pretty cool. So once again, those are structured very similarly to the dietetic practice groups, in that the top positions are elected and are voted on by those who are state members. So when you join the academy, whatever address you put in, whatever state you put in there, you're automatically a member of that state affiliate, and you're allowed to vote for those positions. And then you're also allowed to vote in these national positions. Voting is always really low in Louisiana, so I encourage folks, even students, you can vote in the state and national elections, and then the different DPG elections that you're members of. And so state affiliates, so right now I'm the secretary for our state affiliate, but then we have lots of volunteer board members in different positions. And with LAND, I've noticed over the years, it's a lot of the same people, and they just kind of go from position to position to position because people don't want to volunteer. So that's why I wanted to give a talk to try to get folks to volunteer. And then we're going right down to the local level district group. That's Brand. We're one of, I think, 4 or 5 now in the state. So every state's different in how they are split up as far as their districts go, but it's usually by geographic location. And that doesn't mean that someone from New Orleans can't join Brand and someone in Baton Rouge can't join New Orleans. You can do whatever you want. It's just traditionally it was more, let's try to stay close together so we can have events and whatnot. And so we do have elections for our top positions, even if we do run unopposed. And then we do have several non-elected positions that we put out there to ask people to volunteer for. And so with these, we have seen over the years, and I just did a webinar with some nutrition professionals yesterday with a different organization. And one of the top questions that kept coming up is, we have all of this opportunity to be in leadership positions. Nobody volunteers, or very low volunteer. And I saw the question pop up in the chat, and I was like, yes, I totally understand. That's exactly how I feel. At the same time, we put in a lot of work at these different levels to really keep things running, and we can't get folks to volunteer. And so one of the things I hear a lot is, well, I'm not sure I have the skills. I don't think I have what it takes to be able to do that. So I'm just not going to do it at all. And so that's what I'm going to talk about on the next couple of slides, of kind of how to get past that. All right, so what I have noticed over the years of being involved in various levels of the academy is that the same skills that make for really successful leaders and change makers in general are the same ones that are really part of the core group of people who really help keep the academy up and running and doing well. And so I'm just going to go through these just real quick. So these are all things that you might feel like you have as a skill, and then maybe your level of that might vary. But with communication, communication's first because it is number one. You cannot exist as a leader and be able to be influential if you do not communicate properly. And so this is not just speaking, it's listening, it's all the verbal, nonverbal, how you represent yourself visually, and that could be how you represent yourself on a Zoom call, in person, on your website, on social media, in the public, however you are representing and visually representing yourself. Technological and how you're using technology, your ability to write. And I added in here, open to difficult conversations. So the ability to have the conversations and to not shy away from them. And that was my thing of just knowing the right thing to say. I always wish that I still strive for that. Great leaders have a lot of integrity, and we are not all perfect. And so we should be apologizing for our mistakes when we do make them, because we do. And while all of this is going on, we should also not be blaming others if it was the collective's group. Sorry about that. All right, integrity, that makes sense. So highlighting other people's work. So the leader usually comes across as the person who has done all of the work when they really haven't. There's a big team behind every leader that has been doing a lot of the less desirable, less fun work, and their time and effort should be highlighted. Oops, okay. Giving people the benefit of the doubt, giving situations the benefit of the doubt, not immediately taking sides. That's always a good aspect of integrity and good leader. And then just being appreciative of people's time. And it kind of leads right into accountability. Give credit where credit is due, and then take responsibility for the blame when you have to, even if it wasn't your own fault. Empathy, with being open-minded to understand other people and their motivations, their hopes, their dreams, their problems, really being able to put yourself in someone's shoes or their position to see things from their point of view. That usually comes in handy when you're trying to resolve conflict between two parties, or when you're on one side of the conflict in that situation. Just really trying to understand the other person. Humility, with focusing on problem solving and team dynamics more than self-promotion. And so another maybe myth or misconception of those in high leadership positions is that it's all about them and them striving to get to the top. And you can't get to the top without your team with you. So it's bringing everybody up with you at the same time and really making sure that as a team you can get through it together. And then with resilience, they always say it's not how you perform during the good times, but how you handle the bad stuff. And so everything's all nice and hunky-dory when things are running smooth and on the front side of things. But when something bad happens and you can get through it as a leader, as a team, be able to bring your team through that, to keep them working hard for the common good of whatever that situation is, that's what makes a really great leader. Vision, that's something we always talk about. We can't really go anywhere unless we have a clear set direction of where we're going to go and why. We really need to be decisive in our decisions. So leaders really need to be like, this is what's happening, this is why it's important, and this is why you are important in the process. And this is why we all need to be in this as a team. That's what inspires loyalty. Someone is loyal to somebody else when they feel they're appreciative and they feel like they're a part of the vision themselves. They're part of that greater good that you're striving towards. That's how you get people to commit to whatever the vision is. Keeping everybody abreast of the big picture so they don't sweat the small stuff so much. And with influence, very similar, earning respect, through stating what you want, making people feel important. When you're appreciating them and thanking them for their time, it really helps with your influence on them. Always asking others for input and building real relationships. So another common misconception is that those who are in those leadership positions are just nice to everybody because they have to be. And sometimes we do have to do that, but for the most part, we're not. The people that we surround ourselves in these leadership groups, we really do have real relationships with each other, and we're friends and coworkers, colleagues outside of that, and we inspire each other to do better. When I'm around different groups of people within the different groups within the organization, I aspire because of their level of success outside of in that position or within that organization and then outside of that. Positivity, we don't have to be positive all the time, but it does help to inspire the team that it's not the leader's goals, it's everybody's goals. And so we have to really have a positive outlook on life, an attitude in every different situation. Even when it's a negative situation, we kind of have to keep the big picture in mind and try to be as positive as we can throughout that. Delegation, being able to delegate, that is the number one thing, not number one, very common thing I see on students' personal statements when they have to talk about their weaknesses. There's a lot of people admit, I just cannot delegate. And there's other reasons behind that where they don't feel comfortable delegating. Those that know me know I have no problem telling people delegating responsibility, delegating things. It's just that comes with practice, which you have to practice with leadership. And so it's not just telling people what to do, it's and how to do it. It's I'm going to give you all the tools to be able to get it done and to do it right and to be successful. And it's not just like do it, shut the door. It's here it is, here's how we're going to do it, here's how it's going to be successful, and then you step away and let them do it. You don't keep interrupting and micromanaging. You let them do it, because when they can be successful on their own, they build self-confidence, which helps with, my dog barked and I lost my train of thought. It improves their self-confidence. And so they're going to be more confident about the situation, doing a better job, holding you in more high esteem, becoming more loyal, and committing more to the goal. Everything kind of connects. And the big thing with delegation is setting clear expectations and explaining where the finish line is. So as you are stepping away, really making it clear and telling them this is what has to be achieved for this to be a success. And then with confidence, we can talk about confidence in different ways all day, but a lot of times you just have to jump in, roll up your sleeves, and just start doing something. So are you concerned you don't have the skills that it takes? I hear that a lot from individuals. And so when it comes to stuff within the academy, the good news is experience is usually not necessary first and upfront, except for those top board of directors positions and chair-elect positions, because you're eventually going to be chair. They usually like those individuals in the DPGs, the MIGs and whatnot, even within land, maybe have a little bit of leadership experience within the academy in some way, so you kind of know how it works. But for everything else, you are trained. Training is provided by whoever did it before you. I received awesome training in almost every position I've taken over, and while I was doing my secretary duties and now I'm doing my treasurer duties, I try to take really meticulous notes of what I'm doing so I can pass that to the next person and feel good about myself that I didn't just leave somebody hanging. Because anyone who's ever felt like that, it's like, come on, you were here for 2 or 3 years, you didn't like leave me any notes, that sort of thing. That's not my style. So the most important attribute is the desire to get involved and serve. So it's not just stepping into something, it's really wanting to step in and to immerse yourself in that and learn a position, and then maybe take that and start to do other positions over time. And so I always tell folks, sometimes you just have to ask, like email a chair of a DPG or email the president of land and be like, hi, I'm so-and-so. I just would really like to get involved. Do you have any needs right now? And a lot of times just asking is where we would get so excited. We would find something for you to do. We would link you up with somebody in like a mentoring type situation, and so you can learn how someone can do something. Like, you just have to ask. You just have to step up and ask. And right now, I'll talk about this in a second, but right now there's a lot of positions open. It's kind of a nomination season. And so there's a lot of positions open within the MIGs and DPGs. And then in the spring, it's district level and state affiliate level, but there's always stuff that's open and available. And some of these things you can pursue as a student because they're student positions, or you can pursue them as an intern because you don't need to be an RD to be in that particular position, or you're going to be passing the RD exam in that year that you're going to take over that position. That's fine. There's always something going on, some position that's out there that you could contribute to. And so really, when you get those emails, don't ignore them. Really just take a minute to look through them. Usually job descriptions or position descriptions are linked in there, and you can just kind of look through them. All of our DPG websites usually have our positions listed with like what we do, and so you can kind of get an idea of what's going on. And a lot of times, for most positions, exactly what's in that position description is exactly what you would do. So if you feel you could handle it, you probably have the skill set to handle it. Nominating all of these folks, the nominating committee obviously is recruiting those to be nominated for elected positions, but they will also take in emails from individuals who just want to help with the non-elected positions. So right now, like I said, almost all DPGs and MIGs are accepting nominations for whatever positions they have open. And it changes by the week. Like I just had my research DPG EC meeting this morning, and 3 people that have been on that board for decades have decided that they want to, after this year, retire from leadership positions. And now all these fun positions are open for individuals to go after. And like I said, district and state affiliates, we do our stuff in the spring, elections around March or April, and then that starts with the new member year of June 1st. And like I said, training is always provided. All right, so you're probably thinking, okay, I think I might have the skills, so why should I get involved? Kind of mentioned this with the folks with research DPG starting to exit. Those that are in leadership roles right now, we can't do it all, and we don't want to do it forever. And so, and it's good to have a rotation of individuals coming in and out. We need new faces, new ideas, new input continuously, or we're never going to grow as a profession. We need diverse input for diverse output. And so a lot of these, I always talk to a lot of individuals, we call it the vintage guard of the academy, the groups of people that have 50+ years of experience and with the academy that are still running it. And so we need our younger generation of RDs and interns and students to kind of start, not to expect that things are going to be done for you, to jump in and start to be that group of people that is doing the work. The work is never going to end with strengthening our profession and getting us out there as a profession. Being in one of these groups helps you expand your network, like tremendously. Even in my position, I still need to expand my network so that I can meet people who can speak on my behalf when I go up for promotion. In academia, it's a really complicated process, and it requires letters from people you've never worked with professionally, getting paid from the same place. And so I need contacts from all of these different leadership groups to help me with that. And so I try to keep that up. And so there's never a time where you're going to be not needing to expand your network. So as a student, as an intern, or an early career professional, when you get in with these groups, you just never know who you're going to meet, who might drop the right job position in your lap, who might drop the right opportunity. You just never know. You may actually improve upon skills that you can transfer to your current position or your work-related leadership position. So if you're trying to advance through leadership as an RD in your organization, advancing your skills over here on your volunteer side, strengthening your skills is going to help on the other side. And you're going to bring that into your workplace and bring that self-confidence into your workplace. And that might inspire you to move up the ladder. It might inspire you to leave your job and get a better job. It might inspire a student to apply to a different type of internship. It might inspire an intern to move across the country to pursue a job they didn't think that they were originally qualified for. And so when you're doing these things in leadership, you really do improve your overall self-confidence. And it really does feel like you're sort of contributing to the greater good with regard to our profession and making changes, especially when you've been a part of it. So I'm curious to see what happens with that House of Delegates thing, since I was immersed in that for about a month of having multiple people ask me my opinion and write statements about why I think the House of Delegates should stay and da da da. And so we'll see what happens with that. And so it is really great at building relationships and making new friends. I mean, I have friends from my DPG contacts all over the country, and we've actually never met because we're all COVID friends that met through the pandemic of being stuck at home on Zoom calls. And we would have all met this week at Fancy, but we'll just have to try next year. And if you are kind of striving to go after those state level awards like Outstanding Dietitian of the Year, Emerging Dietitian, Young Dietitian of the Year. I'm too old for that. That's why I don't have that one. So you have to be under 35. If you want to go after those awards, they look really highly upon what's going on with the profession. And I would say even with intern of the year, DPD student of the year at the land level, they like to see when students are involved at a district or state level. And so if you can be doing something, that's what they want to see. All right. So catching up on my notes. So one thing, you don't have to really do it right now, but one thing to think about, I would like for you to really think about what I discussed and set one goal for yourself to increase your volunteer involvement in one of the levels of the academy within the current member year, which ends at the end of May 22. So think about what you could go after. Maybe go back in your email, see who emailed you lately to say something was open. There's always student positions. There's always a student rep position. That can be an undergrad, grad, or intern. In every DPG, MIG, every level, CDR, Ascend, all the levels have student involvement in some way. And then for those starting out, you can pretty much jump into any position with little experience other than a chair-elect position. So take advantage of those little opportunities to learn from others on what they're doing. You don't have to take on a lot at once. It might only take you an hour or two a week, an hour or two a month, depending on the position of volunteer time. Mine have varied from a couple hours a month to several hours a week, but it just really depends on who else is in the leadership. That's a long story for a podcast one day when someone important retires. Expand on a passion or interest area to keep yourself engaged. So go after, if you're really into weight management, go towards the weight management DPG or the research DPG, public health, or go after a MIG that you identify with, and so that you can be engaged in the type of things that they're talking about. And that's also going to get you connected to a network that is also very deep in that. So like research DPG, we are all who are dietitians, we're all researchers in some way, but we all do something completely different. And with the public health community nutrition, we're all in community, but we all do something entirely different. And so you just kind of will get a plethora of contacts of people that just do little different things in just little ways that you never imagined. So think about what you could do, set a goal for yourself, and see where you're at come May. And then let me know if you took on anything. All right. So I just wanted to mention that we are currently looking for a chair-elect for the current member year. So this would be for a current dietitian located within our district. If you think that you might have the skills to take on, I'm going to say you don't need experience for this chair-elect position because you would be trained by me. And so it would be nice to have a chair-elect so that I could actually not have to have a chair position next year and focus on some other things. And then so in the past, we've had chair positions such as newsletter chair, policy chair, and fundraising chair. We actually don't have those positions filled right now. We don't have a newsletter because we don't have anybody that wants to help with one. So we don't have people filling these positions right now. So if you are interested in that, I will find some more information. I think we probably have position descriptions hiding somewhere in our files. But I would love to bring back these chair positions if we can, if someone is interested in filling those. And then information on the open positions for the next member year, that will go out in February. All right, I will take some questions if anyone has any. Brooke, do you have a question?
Yes, I was waiting to see if anybody else had any questions. I have a couple of questions. Um, so I guess I'll start from the top. You mentioned Fancy, how you're sort of collaborating with all levels of people, as where it could have been a student, could have been somebody like you. How do you get involved with that? How do you go about getting into those types of meetings?
Oh, okay. A lot of times it's reading the emails that are sent out and seeing where the opportunities are. So with Fancy, if you're a member of a DPG or an interest group, or you get emails about like alternative things going on during Fancy that aren't part of the official agenda, so to speak, and you technically don't have to go to Fancy to participate now that it's virtual this year. Um, and usually those meetings are open to anybody that's a member. And so a lot of times that's how you can sit in. So if Fancy was in person, I'll use an example. If we were in person this year in New Orleans, like the Research DPG, we would have had like a social hour, either breakfast or cocktail hour, mocktail hour, and most of the board is there, but then it's open to anybody. And so that's for, and they don't have to necessarily be Research DPG members. They could be somebody that's maybe interested in being a member. They're just not sure what the group's about. And so they just want to meet some people and kind of mingle and network, and then maybe they'll join afterwards. But it's really paying attention to like the postings. So if you are a member of these different groups, read the newsletters, the e-blasts, the random emails, sign up for the listserv, or check out the listserv, check out their websites. Check out their social media. If you just put DPG in Instagram or Facebook, you'll find all of the ones that have pages, and you can just kind of follow. And just like SNDA and all these local groups, they post stories and posts about everything that's going on that people are invited to, and then what positions are open.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Or I keep going?
A question, but if you have more, you can finish yours.
Brooke probably has a list. Caroline, we'll take your question.
Okay, did you ever pursue a leadership role when you were practicing lactation when you were CLC?
I do have a leadership role right now with that. And
Okay,
so
what
I'm
is
I'm on the steering committee for the Louisiana Breastfeeding Coalition
okay.
currently, and then I was on the Alabama Coalition board previous to that. And so with the position I have with that is it's a group of us who I think I'm the only person that does research and is in academia. It's a group of folks. We're all lactation consultants or counselors in some way, and we provide over $10,000 in scholarships a year to help others get their lactation credentials. We're all about trying to increase the number of counselors and consultants in low-income areas throughout the state, rural areas of the state who don't have as much access to facilities. And then we kind of support policies that are going on either in the state or at the national level. We attend national conferences related to lactation. It's not one of the most thriving groups I've ever been a part of. It's kind of on the struggle bus right now because of lack of folks like to be on the steering committee, but then they don't like to do anything when they're on it. We're kind of having that problem. And we have a chair who doesn't want to do everything. And she's gotten tired of doing everything and kind of called us out. And I was like, I never heard a leader do that before. I wasn't happy with how she approached the call out. I almost kind of wanted to email her and be like, that's not how you go about keeping people committed to a board by like saying they're not pulling their weight when you didn't tell people what to pull. So that's the only thing I have going on with lactation.
Okay.
Oh, and I was on the LSU Pregnancy and Parenting Board for over 3 years. I was one of the creators of that, but I
didn't
stepped
even know
down.
that was a thing.
We have that. Yes, we do. Triple P. It's if you just Google LSU Pregnancy and Parenting, I was one of the creators of that program. I just stepped down from that because it just got to be too much. I took on way too much. Clearly. So that was one of the things I decided to let go because 3 years is usually like the sweet spot for a position. Usually, like when you get nominated for something, it's like, okay, 3 years and then you're done. And so I was like, it's been 3.5. I think I'm done.
All right, well, thank you.
You're welcome. Brooke, did you have another question?
Yeah, just give it, making sure nobody else has any questions. Okay, so next I have is you mentioned the member interest groups and applying for positions, even if you're a student, intern, or dietitian. But it did say in the slides, and maybe I just wasn't all the way hearing you whenever you said like meeting experience, but you can apply as a student, just not as for a chair elect. Is the experience only required for applying for chair elect, or is it for also if you're applying as a student or an intern?
No, it's only chair elect positions.
Just the chair elect, you need the experience.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because
gotcha.
the chair elect for the DPGs and the MIGs actually plans the Fancy session that they submit. So you kind of have to know how that works, and you have to know when you eventually take over the following year, you kind of have to know what everybody else does. So you have to have a little bit of experience. With the student, every other position you don't. Like I had no experience. Well, actually, I've been a secretary for a real person, not like a board secretary. So I knew how to take minutes and whatnot, but I didn't know how to use like our website. I didn't know how to use the eBlast system. So I had to get trained on that and then train somebody else. So I didn't have any experience being a secretary. And then now I'm a treasurer, and the particular DPG I'm on, someone actually does my whole job for me, writes me a script, and then I just talk I'm the face of the money at the meetings. It's kind of hilarious. So every group within the academy has someone that's paid by the academy to help run the back end of it, and this one just happens to like to do everybody's job for them. But not every DPG is like that. But student stuff, if there's like a student liaison position, student rep, whatever it's called, like student whatever, you don't need any experience. That's what the position is there for you to be in, to get at the table, get a seat at the table.
In situations like that, that's what it kind of means to be, whenever you mention getting involved on a district or state level, like emailing, like you said earlier, the president of land, hey, what can I get involved with? And then they give you certain, tasks, even if it's
Yeah,
not
so I didn't mention this, but a lot of times you might already have skills that are transferable. And so if you really like web design, we would love to have your help on web design, because that can sometimes be timely. If you're really good at creating things, visuals, flyers, that sort of thing, whatever kind of hobbies or personal random skills you have might come in handy. And so it never hurts just to email like the land president, a DPG, or a MIG chair, somebody, just be like, is there something on your committee that you would need help with? Just let me know. Like I might be able to help out. Da, da, da. Like literally just asking is going to help.
So that would help with like networking and just learning the ropes, that type of thing. But is it also just as equally important to like apply for things, so that way it can be something like substantial that you can put on your resume if you are interested in kind of moving up and applying for bigger things? Or is it one and the same?
Like starting in non-elected and moving up to elected. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, kind of like if, say, you want to eventually, be in your position, working your way up, as in like becoming a chair of brand, not so much just being like, hey, land president, can I get these, handouts and things like that. That's like volunteer work, but would that kind of could I just go from making a handout and like helping out as much as I can with land, not really having like a particular role, and then go to straight over to, okay, I want to apply to be like the secretary of brand. You know what I mean?
You could do that. If you were to volunteer now, and then after you pass the RD exam, because there are some positions you do have to be a dietitian, just with the bylaws. So, and then you pass the RD exam, and then for the next member year, you could, yeah, I mean, you could go for secretary right away. Like you don't need experience to be secretary or treasurer. Training is involved. But it doesn't hurt to start small if that's what all you have time for, and then work your way up. So one of the things why do I have so many different positions? I actually want to see how the different positions work. Like I experienced what it's like to be a secretary. I wasn't a fan of it, but I respect it. And so now I'm a treasurer because I want to know how the money flows through the academy, and we'll kind of see what happens next. Am I slated to be a land president at some point? Yes. Am I slated to be on the board of directors at some point? Yes. That has been bestowed upon me heavily, like in the next 10 years, you're going to be on the board of directors at some point. And so that's kind of what I'm personally working towards. And so really understanding how each person does their job will help me lead everybody someday.
I think I remember you saying that if you're on the board of directors, it's a strictly volunteer basis. You don't get paid for that. Okay.
I think maybe you get like, your flight to Fancy and your hotel, and like they send you on speaking engagements, they might pay for it, but it's considered service. So usually it's individuals who are at the tail end of their career to where they can do that. So I definitely would not be able to do that in the next like 12 to 13 years.
State affiliate, like which positions do offer any payment for services? Is it state affiliates?
Oh, what positions would you get paid at? Well,
Yeah, the one on the slide that you
none,
brought.
but I know in Louisiana we have what is it called? It's it's a book. it's a dietary practice guide that we put together, and we actually pay RDs to review it every 3 years. And so that's the only thing we pay people for. It's kind of the altruism thing. Like you should do it for the good of the order, not to receive payment for it. I mean, because if I was getting paid for half the stuff I do, whoo, I would be a lot less stressed out about everything. All right, let's do one more question, if anyone has one. All right, so if you didn't see it when you came in, if you are an RD or DTR, you can get a CEU for this for free if you're a member. If you're a non-member of brand, you can pay $10 for the CEU. All of the certificates, I will email those out the next day, tomorrow, or the next day after you view this. I just want to thank everybody again for coming. Thank you to Brooke for moderating her first webinar. She's taking on leadership roles and she doesn't even realize it. And so thank you all for coming. If you have any questions, I think everybody in this Zoom knows where to find me. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Dr. McKinley.